not all diplomats call the name Armando, actually. We are only three. And this is the case. Armando, we never worked together. We worked with my sister.
And so
we never worked together. But it is actually the case that a few diplomats calling that Armando are actually in this beautiful group. So first of all, I want to thank the organizer and the Fondazione Scienze Religiose for giving us this opportunity also to bring something that is actually been building for some time in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and together also with our partner ISPI, which is actually the understanding and the interest of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and internal cooperation is actually dedicated to the religious factor in international relations. This is something that has been going on for quite a while. I would say that there is a natural attitude of Italian diplomats in interrogating themselves about the social structure and the different factors that actually make a nation, a society, what it is. And among these factors, of course, the religious factor is extremely important. And so we have a few programs that we have been running from some time. We have a specific workshop and seminars related to the influence of religion in international relations that we have been actually organizing together with ISPI for the past 5-6 years. We created a network of European and Western diplomats actually dealing with religion and international affairs that is actually making an excellent work, especially in terms of what we call religious literacy of public officials, trying to understand the importance in the different countries of the religious factor and the role of religious leaders and how you can better interact with them. And then, of course, as Armando just said, we have the medal, which is in our mission. It is actually what we call the Munich Conference of the Mediterranean, and which has actually been considered, which is actually considered the second most important international conference on international and security affairs after the Munich Conference, and this is just after 3 years, just after 2 years. So a lot going on about that, and so we thought that actually the meeting of the European Academy of Religion was a good opportunity for us to discuss a little bit about some issues in the framework also of meta dialogue that will actually be at the end of November, beginning of December. But before trying to answer some of the questions of Armando, but there are a lot of people at this table, so I hope and I'm sure that they will have a much more interesting answers than mine. I think it's very useful, as we are in Bologna, to see some little abstracts of the very beautiful documentary that was actually shot here in Bologna, in the region of Bologna. And I think it's very actually relevant to all the discussions that we are having, and especially to the questions that Armando just said. So if you give me just a few seconds, I will start the 2 minutes. It's just 2 minutes. I think some of you probably have already seen it, but if some of you have not, I strongly suggest to do that, because it's very relevant for some of the issues that we are discussing, but especially for thinking about what our society is becoming and the kind of problems and issues that we will have to face in the future.
Questo incontro abbiamo un ospite speciale, qualcuno di voi lo conosce, lui è qua.
Siamo una costituente libera, nel senso siamo anche fuori dal carcere, siamo una corte costituzionale che siamo nel paese, non siamo dentro un carcere.
Adesso iniziamo a scrivere e ognuno scrive quello che per lui la società gli dà. Non si chiama l'ISPI per il fatto. Se uno vuole scrivere anche una frase, può scrivere una frase. Basta anche però.
Se fosse un altro conseguente sulla possibilità non c'è tutto sulla possibilità poi cercheranno di mano dell'attività che prima di entrare alla base di istituto, perché sono quelle che ti permettono di essere libero senza possibilità, non sei poi stai sicuro ma senza libero, senza delle istruzioni, senza di aver letto e studiato, non sei libero, puoi avere tutti i soldi che vuoi e senza soldi con l'istruzione ufficiale puoi essere libero perché non puoi avere da mangiare. Anche mio nonno che molto adesso diceva tra un piacere, cioè se non prendere ormai l'opinione non c'è il fare e quindi qualcos'altro si prende da mangiare, si appoggia il piatto, lui vede il piatto e vuole mangiare, dice allora sei d'accordo a fare no?
You've seen that this is just a trailer plus some abstract of this document. It's called the Dustur. For those of you who speak Arabic, that Dustur means the Constitution, Supreme Law. So the whole experiment was actually to ask some of the Muslim prisoners in Italian jail, by the way the jail is in Bologna, and with some tutors, and tutors were actually Catholic priests and some Muslim prisoners who actually left to write the perfect constitution. What they really think should be the supreme law of a country in which they would feel comfortable, etc. And as you can understand, during this the discussion about the writing of this ideal constitution, of course you will have all the issues that we discuss in the media that we are confronted with, which has actually to do, for instance, about the implementation of Sharia in this ideal society, and then the contrast of Sharia with constitutional law, and then the role of other minorities in this perfect society. All the issues that are actually very important, and they are very much at the heart of building a society in which you have different religions and different communities are actually very well portrayed in the documentary. I don't want to take too much of your time. I think there is, first of all, you know, I think that we have to reason a little bit with the numbers and trying to understand where are we going. Okay. And the numbers in terms of a growing presence of Islam in Europe are very clear. We actually use, you know, the problem of statistics in the field is actually that some countries actually don't allow the classification of, like France for instance, don't allow the classification of citizens by religion. So it's very difficult to have some concrete numbers about the number of Muslim communities in Europe. But just to give you some figure, and this is just referring to some countries that for some reason have been actually at the heart of the discussion about Islam in Europe. In Germany, in 2010, we had something like 4 million Muslims, then raising in 2015 more or less to 4.3, and then with a projection to 2030 of 5.5 million. In France, and it's perhaps the most difficult country in terms of statistics from that point of view, we have numbers that actually talk of 4.1, but other statistic 4.7 Muslim citizens in France, and the project, this is 2015, and then the projection is actually 6.8 in 2030. And I would say the same increase in the number of Muslims in our societies is happening in other countries like Belgium and the United Kingdom and also in Italy. Now we have a situation in which we have something like official 1.6 million of Muslims living in Italy, and we have a projection for 2030 in which there will be 3 million, and it will be for 5.5% of the population. The final statistics, those numbers are nice, but you don't have to exaggerate the numbers, otherwise people get bored after a while. We have a situation now in the whole of Europe, just consider Russia, by itself, we're talking about 20-25 million. In the whole of Europe, we have 43 million Muslims. In 2030, we will have 70 million Muslims. And these are realistic projections of what actually would be the future landscape of the religious presence in Europe. And of course, for a country like Italy, in which we are so much focusing on migration, especially, and on the migrants arriving on the coast of Sicily, something like projection for 2017 speaks of 200,000 people that should actually arrive in Italy before the end of 2017, and some of them, I would say most of them, are coming from countries in which actually Islam is one of the main religions. Most of the immigrants that arrive in Sicily are coming usually from Nigeria, and then from Eritrea, Senegal, Gambia, all these countries in which Islam is the dominant, or at least is one of the most important religions. So, I think there is a basic point of departure about that this would entail a change, a serious change in our societies, and that the state and ourselves, we should prepare for this change. It's not something that we can cancel. It's the illusion of closing borders. It's something that it's a problem of management, and it's a problem of management means the ability to use different instruments to actually allow a flexible transition to this different kind of society that we'll have to deal with in the future. And this was very much, a little bit, perhaps some of you heard about the Italian proposal on the migration compact. And the migration compact that we proposed and finally actually is being implemented in Europe has very much to do with this proposal. The idea that you need a mix, a cocktail of different instruments in which you have security in the borders, you control the borders, but you also have agreements with the origin and transit countries. And then you also have instruments for improving the situation in these countries and the increasing growth, etc., etc. But you also have to take care of the problem of integration in our own society. And from that point of view, there is, I don't think I have to go back to the doctrine about the different models of integration in Europe. You know that each of us is trying to give a different recipe from that point of view. And you have the multiculturalism that the United Kingdom tried to implement, which actually resulted in the principle of very close communities. And I don't remember, I think it's Birmingham, it's been called Birmingham Stand. And actually these communities that don't really interact, or they interact only when they use religious identity when they have to ask for financing to the state. And so the religious identity is even more strengthened, and they actually don't have a relationship with other communities. Then you have the assimilation, the model in France. And then you have what is called, I think the German model has been called functionalism. If you ask me about the Italian model, I would say, as usual, pragmatism. Okay? And in that we are actually facilitated by, we have to be true to ourselves. It's not that everything is all right. The reality is that our numbers are much lower than these other countries. As I said, it's more or less 1/3 or half of the other countries, so the situation is still manageable, and that can be done. So all these models, but then the reality at the end of the day with what can happen, especially in terms of the situation of the second generation or third generation migrants, then we find ourselves confronted with the situation in which all these models, in a way or another, didn't work the way they were built for. And we still have a huge problem of integration and unease in terms of belonging of the second generation and the third generation to the state and to, I would say the term culture, but to the European culture in general. I think I think it's useful actually to go a little bit to the Italian situation, but just to speak about, you know, the formula that has been used, the Pact for Islam that has just been concluded between the Ministry of Interior and 8 Muslim associations. It's very useful because it actually touches upon some of the crucial issues that are actually related with the role of this community in our society and the integration of this community in our society. One of the things that is, for instance, dealt with in the Pact for Islam, it is actually the role of the Imam. What kind of role you see for the Imam, and then the establishment of the mosques, and then the recognition of the mosque and the different programs for integration, and issues like, for instance, the language to be used in Italian mosque. And it is very much what you see in the Pact for Islam, is very much the idea of building an Italian Islam, a community in which Muslim citizens are fully Italian citizens. And this is very much at the heart of the whole discussion that we are actually having in Italy. And one crucial issue for me is actually the idea of the process of recognition of the imams, and which is probably very much at the heart of the discussion about the integration of Muslim communities in our societies. It has to do with that because, and it's a very complicated issue. Our Muslim friends, they know that much better than we do. It's actually the process, usually the process of recognition, especially in Sunni Islam, process of recognition of Imam is something that comes from the community. So the idea of having the state recognizing declaring who is the perfect Imam is something that is very much at odds with the tradition and with the Sunni Islam. So it's clear that there is some work that must be done. At the same time, it is very important that as in any dimension of the society, that we have a process in which we are sure that people that have so much influence and so much importance for a community are people who are trained for and are people that are capable of doing that job. And speaking, for instance, of the Imam, it's very much the problem that we have, the same problem that you can have with any political or social association. The idea that you have a figure that being able to work on the territory locally, but at the same time now, even more important is actually the ability to be a virtual actor, so the leader of a virtual community. But I think I'm speaking too much, and I would be very happy afterwards if we wanted to discuss some of the issues that I tried to raise now. And I would say that I would go to the conclusion and just going back a little bit to my experience as Italian ambassador to Sudan. And it has very much to do with the questions that Armando actually raised to me. First of all, the idea of compatibility of Islam with democracy, liberal democracy, with the constitution, etc., etc., etc. Some of us who studied history remember a famous prime minister of the British Empire declaring that Italy and Spain were not fit for democracy. Okay, you know, they are Catholics, they have these strange societies, they will never be fit for liberal democracy. And this is something that is recurring. Okay, this society will not be fit for democracy. It is an intrinsically, I would say, conservative or authoritarian message behind that some societies, for some cultural, religious, social reason, are not fit for liberal democracy or for democracy. It is actually very wrong. And it is actually the main issue is trying to build a model in which actually this community can be an integral part of society. And then, and this goes back a little bit to my experience, when I arrived in Sudan, and the idea that we have this idea of Islam as a sort of monolith, and there is nothing more wrong than that. Islam is a dictatorship. It is Sudan is a dictatorship. When I arrived there, and it's a very strange dictatorship because it's a dictatorship which is both military and religious, because the role of Muslim Brotherhood there is very strong. But when I arrived in a country which is actually has this configuration, and I had to speak with religious leaders, I had a list of 15 people to visit. I had to meet with the Counselor for Sharia of President Bashir. I had to speak with the Minister of Foreign Affairs, who was previously an Islamic judge. I had to speak with the 5 or 6 Sufi community and the Brotherhood, the Tariqa, and all of them having different views of Islam and the relationship of Islam with society, and all of them having their own view of how Islam and Sharia should be implemented into society. So there is something that must be very clear. What we perceive from the horrible years that are actually hopefully, we hope that they are behind us. We have this idea of this monolithic Islam that is actually propagating jihad, etc. There is nothing more wrong than that. Okay, Islam is a very, I would say, it's a very lively culture in which you have so many different opinions, so many different points of view, in which those opinions are really the very small minority. And I will just close with that. There is one thing that we have to understand. All the discussion that we are having about the compatibility of Islam and its legal sources and the implementation of Sharia and the interpretation of Sharia and of the Sunnah, of the Quran, this kind of discussion has been going on through Islam since the origin. This was actually the first discussion in the moment that Muslim scholars or legal advisors, etc., had to think about how to build a society which is in line with the Quran. And then Muslim scholars have been discussing this, and you have a process of reform going on to centuries. And I have a person that is very dear to me, is actually Abdullah al-Naim, who is a so-called Muslim reformist. He was part of a movement that's called Muslim reformist, and I will close with that. He is making a very clear distinction. It's not by case that he's a lawyer, so he tries to put everything in legal ideas. So he makes a very clear distinction about the separation of religion from the state. Religion must be separated from the state, but we have to understand that society and politics cannot be separated from religion. And so to understand that religion has a place in politics and in society. And I was reading, among the things that I was thinking, for instance, at the Tunisian experiment that has been so much into discussion. There you have a very clear example of what this means in terms of the state to be neutral, not interfering, but at the same time recognizing the role that religious association or parties with the religious background can have in society. But I think I've spoken too much. Thank you very much for your attention.